Here we're looking at religious diversity and how to respond to religious diversity. So we are introducing the topic here and giving the first of three potential ways of responding to diversity, and that is exclusivism. In this video, I'm following along with the book Reason and Religious Belief by Michael Peterson, William Hasker, Bruce Reichenbach, and David Basinger. So I am following their chapter in the progression of how they present these ideas. So a question to ask here is, how should we respond to religious diversity? And most adherents of any particular religion, doesn't matter which religion, in the contemporary world today are aware of a diversity of religions, a diversity of religious practices. So almost everyone who is an adherent of a particular religious belief system or a religious tradition is certainly aware that they're not the only ones having religious ideas, that there is a broad diversity. And so how should one respond to what the person believes, what other people believe? So we're focusing, as is usual in philosophy of religion, on beliefs, not on how we relate to one another necessarily, not on the sociology and so on. So we're not talking about how do you treat people from other religions. We're talking about what you should think about their beliefs that are different. So this is an epistemological question. It's not really a moral question, although there's a moral question in the neighborhood. Now, some may think it's not morally acceptable to rationally disagree about religious claims. That's why, there might be a moral issue in the neighborhood. But of course, what does that person do if I disagree with them? I say it is morally acceptable to rationally disagree about religious claims. Now, if they think it's not, what are they to say to me in response? Well, apparently, if they disagree with me, they're doing something that is not morally acceptable, and you see the problem. So let's go ahead and jump into the first approach to diversity, and that is a view called exclusivism. And the thesis of exclusivism is that salvation, liberation, human fulfillment, whatever you want to identify as the chief end of humans in the religion, may be found in one and only one religion or set of religious beliefs. So that is exclusivism. We can add to that adherents of other religions, though they may be pious, though they may be very moral, do not attain salvation or human fulfillment through their religion. And the basis for this is that religions make incompatible truth claims, claims that cannot all be true. And so the exclusivist says that where religious claims conflict, at least one must be false. Simple case, the monotheistic religions compared to polytheistic religions, right? One group says there is only one God, another group says there is more than one God. So it looks like at least one claim must be false. That's the view of exclusivism. Let's consider some examples. So these could be pulled from any particular religious belief system, but we'll give three kind of prototypical examples here. So for example, a Muslim might be exclusivist and claim that Muhammad is the one true prophet of God. The Quran is the final written revelation of God, and it's written for all humans. Any other scripture is incomplete at best and may be false in many places. A Christian may be exclusivist and claim that Jesus Christ is the one and only way to God, that he alone is God incarnate. There are no other gods. Humans live once, and then they die, they are judged, and then they continue to live on in another realm. And by those claims, of course, she would be ruling out salvation through other means and ruling out the existence of Hindu deities, for example. A third example could be an atheist, right? This, not a follower of a particular religious tradition, but clearly an atheist has specific religious beliefs. So an atheist might be exclusivist and claim that there is no God, and we'll just go out and fill in maybe a particular type of an atheist. Humans are the result of random occurrences and natural selection. There is no supernatural realm or life beyond the natural world. Fulfillment in life comes when one acknowledges this, and anyone who thinks otherwise is mistaken. So this would be the view of, say, for example, Bertrand Russell and Kai Nielsen and many other atheists that you may have heard about. Now, we could include views from other religious traditions as well, even Buddhism, even Hinduism, and they can also be exclusivist. But let's go on to consider objections to exclusivism. So first objection, and this comes in two parts or two different ways of objecting to it. One, it might be hard to believe that those who do not adhere to a particular religion are thereby not enlightened or not saved. It seems like there are, intelligent, reflective, good people in all religious traditions. And so it's kind of hard to believe that, one set is kind of left out, not enlightened, not saved, not fulfilled in some way. And so this is combined with that idea there are good people in all varieties of religions, and to exclude good people is to be arrogant. So the arrogance might be intellectual arrogance or otherwise, and so this seems to be a challenge for exclusivism. A response, first to part A, is being hard to believe is, of course, relative to one's circumstances. What's hard to believe for one person is not necessarily hard to believe for another person. But going on, if there's good reason for a person to think that her religious views are true, and if those religious beliefs exclude the truth of others, is that really arrogance? I mean, it seems not. People have strong beliefs, recognizing that other people disagree with them. This is true with political policy beliefs, with philosophical beliefs of all kinds. Now, an alternative response, some exclusivists hold that at or maybe after death, God will allow a person to understand the message of the truth and to respond to it. Obviously, this is not the atheist saying this. This would be a monotheist saying something like this. And this is nearly inclusivism, a third view that we're going to take up. But it possibly could fit in with exclusivism. A second objection to exclusivism is this idea that if God really wanted all people to come to him, then he would have revealed himself in a way that more people would know the message and have an opportunity to respond. And if you consider any given one religion and think about that religion being exclusivist, what about all those other people who didn't have the opportunity to hear and understand those religious beliefs? Now, a response is kind of twofold here for the exclusivist. One, thinking of the monotheist at least, God did reveal himself generally to all. So the Jewish tradition, a Muslim tradition, and a Christian tradition all say that God reveals himself to all humans, generally speaking. And so all humans have a capacity to respond to him. Now, this is similar to a concern about divine hiddenness, which is another topic. But that is one way that a person might respond to divine hiddenness. A second aspect of this response is, well, okay, but who are we to question God's methods? if it's true, it's true. You know, that's the way it is. And then finally, a third objection to exclusivists is that there are possible negative consequences for being an exclusivist. And we could list all kinds of problems here, of course, various wars, the Inquisition, the Crusades, jihads, tensions in Palestine today, Balkan troubles, Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland, Shiite and Sunni Muslims in the Middle East throughout. We have other problems with Hindus in Far East Asia. So we have all kinds of negative consequences when people are exclusivists. Now, the response to this is, well, wait a minute. You might have negative consequences, but that's not really a reason to think that exclusivism isn't true. Right? That would be committing to consequential fallacy. So just as an example of a consequential fallacy, the case when Darwin published On the Origin of Species, his relatives who knew what he was going to do and heard about it asked that he not publish his works because they thought it would undermine religious beliefs. They were very concerned about the consequences of his evolutionary theory on people who have religious beliefs. Now, okay, that might be a concern, but that doesn't say anything about whether Darwin was right or not. And of course, as a scientist, he was committed to discovering the truth and letting that be known, right? And so if it's true, if something's true, it's okay to pursue it, to state it. Consequences are not really the concern if your primary concern is identifying the truth, which that's what we're doing when we do philosophy. And so we don't worry about the consequences per se. In part 2, we're going to go on and look at a pluralist response and an inclusivist response.